Great. So, welcome everyone to another one of our amazing My Speaker Business community calls. As you know, every month we get together and have an incredible guest with us. So, everyone that hasn't been with us for a while, just a quick reminder of what we are doing here. Every month we like to share with you some practical hints and tips from our guest experts that you can apply in your speaking and your business right away. You can ask your own personal questions on how to make your speaker business flourish further. You can exchange with other professional speakers and also get help and support from others on your own high priority projects and share your news. And also, today it's a little bit later in the day. Normally we have it around lunchtime. We always say, have a nice break with us. I know how busy life is. And it's good to sometimes just tap in and get inspired. And as you know, we run these calls in a very interactive way, so ask anything you want to know right away, as we all have the benefit of having our amazing guests with us. And then also, as I said earlier, mute yourself when you're not speaking. And I know you're all speakers. You love to be visible. You love to be on stage physically and online. So, just when you speak, you will be on video. You are being recorded, as you know. So let's introduce our topic and our amazing guest today. Today, what we'll talk about is how to be a radio star. No experience necessary. And I think this is an incredible promise. So we talk today about podcasting and how radio shows and podcasts are all the rage. But what does it take to become a successful podcaster or radio host? That is a question. And so let me introduce our amazing guest. I met her. Actually, it's really funny that I'm in Europe. She's in the US right now. And we met on the other side of the world, and we actually in Asia at a Women Economic Forum where both of us were speakers. And who is our amazing guest today? She is a former attorney which turned into a female empowerment coach, is an incredible international speaker, also a radio personality, and she encourages women to reveal their smart, sexy, and spiritual selves so they can fall back in love with who they are and find the satisfaction and fulfillment they love to have. She's really integrating her unique identities as an attorney, hypnotherapist, and aficionado of all things like dance and fitness related. She works with women worldwide to identify and reveal the lost, covered-up pieces of their personalities so they can really reveal and accept themselves as they are, not as they think they should be. She's also a life choreographer and the creator of Flaunt and Find Your Sparkle, which are both coaching programs, and she runs workshops and destination retreats. And she's doing so much more. And, the most important part is she is running an incredible podcast and radio show. So our guest today is Lora Cheadle. She's amazing. She is one of Dreamvisions7 Radio Network's top radio hosts. And today she'll talk to us about how, through the basics of designing and setting up our show, how we're finding guests, how we're promoting our own show, and how we overcome stage fright, and all of that through the magic of podcasting and being a radio show host. So, Lora, it's really amazing. It's an honor and pleasure to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to share with all of you. And like Monique said, please feel free to jump in and ask questions. There's also the little, chat feature. If you're thinking about something, you can write yourself a note if you want to come back to it if I'm in the middle of the flow. But I definitely want to answer all of your questions today. So what I'm going to start by saying is, yes, podcasts are all the rage and everybody has one and everybody wants one. But what I want to challenge you to think about is, why do you want one? There are literally a million podcasts out there. And if you're thinking, I should have a podcast, my question to you is, why? What is your why for having a podcast? And the answer, because it's cool, or because everybody else has one, or because they say I should have one, is not necessarily the best answer. Before you invest the time and the money and all of the effort into podcasting or being a radio host, I really want you to challenge yourself and figure out, why am I different from other people? Check out the podcasts that are out there today. How are you similar and how are you different? If there are similar podcasts out there, that's a good thing because it means there's a market for them. But if there are too many of them and you have no distinguishing features, it doesn't really you don't really stand a chance of becoming successful because the market is already saturated. So I really want you to focus on finding that sweet spot for you, something that people are searching for. Having a unique idea is brilliant, but if nobody's searching for it, they're never going to be able to find you. So find that sweet spot between what is popular, what is already being searched for, and what makes you different. And what I want to really encourage you to do as you're working through that process is not get discouraged and frustrated. Honing our message is always so important. And as you know, as a speaker, you've probably been through those times where you think, I'm a genius. No, I'm awful. I'm amazing. No, this is awful. Why am I doing that? Allow yourself the gift of the time to kind of process through those ups and downs. And then when you land on that sweet spot for your show, you will know it. So that is my very first tip. Before anything, figure out your sweet spot and get clear on that. My second tip is on where you want to host your podcast. And yes, you need to find out where your people are, but it's a little bit deeper than that. I host my podcast in 2 different places. I am a member of a radio station. Yes, there's real radio stations out there, and they're wonderful. My show is broadcast on the radio, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., every Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. That means it's literally the radio feed. People can tune in either online or, yes, on the dial on their radio, and they can hear my show. Then 3 to 5 days later, that's available as a downloadable on-demand podcast. I take that feed, that RSS feed, and then I re-upload that to my own website, and I host my own podcast there. Then I also submit that feed to, iTunes, Google Play, all of those different places, so people can find the show on the different platforms. Now, some people don't want to have their show as a radio show as well because maybe their audience is not tuning into the radio. Maybe you just want it as a podcast and you want to skip that whole radio step. That's perfect, that's fine, that's wonderful, but that's a decision that you need to make by asking, where are my people and where are they going to find my show? My target audience is mostly women. It's a range. My older women tend to listen to the radio, but my younger women tend to find me on a podcast. So where are your people? I have that 7 a.m., 7 p.m. drive time spot. My show is broadcast in the East Coast. The drive time is a little bit later there, a little bit earlier in the morning, so I hit that sweet spot. Where are your people? If you're having a noon lunchtime spot, because your people are listening to something at noon on lunchtime, that's perfect. With pure podcasting, you don't have to think about your time spot because people can download it at any time. So that's something else that I want you to think about. Couple of the things with regard to having somebody host your podcast. I am a host at Dreamvisions7 Radio Network, which means I pay them for my airtime, but I'm also paying them to promote me. I'm really, really busy. I can't always promote my own shows. So for me, it's worth it to spend some of that extra money to have the radio time, to have the radio spot, and to sit back and relax on weeks that I'm too busy and allow them to promote me. That means I will never have a dead show. Also, they are a syndicated radio station with a bunch of affiliates. So not only is my show run on their station, but it's run on various women's radio networks. Since it's syndicated, it can be picked up by other sources. And I don't have to worry about it or think about it or promote it. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll Google my own show and I'll see where the shows have gone, and it's kind of phenomenal. It's been picked up by a lot of different places. And then I can reshare those links on my own feed, and the publicity and the promotion is even greater. If you're doing a podcast on your own, all of that responsibility is on you. And that might be perfect. You might be the kind of person who is completely self-driven, who has time every week to promote their own show. And if that's the case, you might want to save the money for hiring a station to promote you, and you might just do it all on your own. But that's a decision you need to make for you. The other thing that I find helpful for me is, since I'm a radio host, I have to produce a show every week. Since I have to produce a show every week, since the station is counting on me, it's not that my show is not important to me. Perhaps you're like me. It's easy to get distracted. It's easy to go on vacation. I've got a family. I'm a mom of 2. I'm running my business. Sometimes it would be easy to let my show fall off the back burner if it was just a podcast and nobody was counting on me. So think about yourself, because podcasting in podcasting, consistency is the key. So how consistent can you be on your own? How dedicated can you be on your own? Are you willing to do what it takes to get a show out there week after week after week? Or do you need somebody to kind of give you that little boost? Which kind of moves me right into my next point, consistency. You don't have to do a weekly show or a daily show, but you do have to have something consistent. And again, my question to you is, what does your audience want? Does your audience want content every week? Are they happy with something every other week? Do you only have enough material for monthly? There's nothing worse than realizing I have a show due at 6 tonight and I have nothing to say. You're better off having a show that is a little bit more infrequent and having really killer content than struggling every week and only putting out, one out of every 3 show that's a really killer show. What do you want to say to your audience? Why is it different than things that other people are saying, and how often do you need to put out that message? If you're a blogger, something else to think about is, do your show and your blog support each other? Do you write a blog post and then do a radio show on the same topic? Or are you trying to do new content? Do you have themes? For 30 days you're doing one thing, for 30 days you're doing another thing, for 30 days you're doing another thing, and then you're recycling it? What is that long-term trajectory of the message in your show? It is so important to have structure in your show and to figure out how often you need to get that content out there. Topic, theme, reach, guests, structure of the show. I do a lot of guest interviews on my show. My show, just So you know, I'll kind of show you the macro and the micro structure. Flaunt is my word. It is an acronym for the 5-step process that I speak about, that I coach women about. It's the name of my book. Flaunt stands for 1, find your fetish. Step 2, laugh out loud. Step 3, accept unconditionally. 4, navigate the negative. And 5, trust in your truth. The title of my show is Flaunt, Build Your Dreams and Live Your Sparkle. So in every show, I use those 5 steps to help listeners learn how to build their dreams and live their sparkle. Sometimes the show can focus more on building your dreams. Sometimes it can focus more on living your sparkle. Sometimes I take guests and I coach them through the 5 steps of Flaunt, so listeners can understand how they can apply those steps to their lives. Sometimes I do guest interviews, like I interviewed Monique a few weeks ago, and we talked about those 5 steps and how she has used those 5 steps in her life and her business. And she shares with listeners how she built her dreams and how she is living her sparkle. So that is the framework of my show, and I can do a lot with that, whether it's guests or coaching or just me sharing my own content. So that's something that you want to do as well, to have that framework that's narrow enough that people get it, but that's broad enough that you don't burn out in 6 months and then you're going, I have no idea. I taught everything I need. I've taught everything I know, and there's no more message for me. So think about that. I will just say this. SEO is challenging for me. My brain doesn't wrap itself around SEO that easily. I wish I had known more about SEO, which is search engine optimization, if you don't know what I'm talking about. I wish, in hindsight, I had known more about that in advance, and I was able to plan my shows around that SEO to get a larger reach initially. If you're an SEO expert, yes, you're 1,000 steps ahead of where I was. If you're not, I would encourage you to learn more about SEO and to brand every single show around your SEO. At this point, I've got a large enough reach that I'm still not worrying about it that much because I already have an audience, but starting out, it would have been really helpful. For example, before we started this call, one of the guests on the show was saying he was a speaker about resiliency. That's your SEO word. Resiliency, resilient. I am resilient. Think about the things people might be searching if they want to listen to a podcast to teach them to be resilient or to be inspired by someone who has been resilient in their life. Think about all of the things that your listeners might be searching for and brand your show around that within the framework of your own show. We're all inspired by different people, and I think oftentimes podcasters have a tendency to meet somebody and to love them and to want them as a guest and to bring them on, but it's completely inconsistent with their branding and their message. For example, I work with mostly women. I do have men as guests on my podcast, but they have to fit within my brand. They're either supporting women, they are either helping men in the same way that I am supporting women. But for me to have certain guests on just wouldn't make any sense for my brand or my messaging. So resist the urge to bring on cool people that you meet, because we've all met those cool people. But if they don't fit in with your brand and your messaging, you have just diluted your brand. Now, speaking of branding, It's very important to know your own brand, to know your own messaging, and to stay on target with your branding. What I want to say with that as well is don't be afraid to be a little bit controversial. It draws people to you when you are clear in your messaging. Now, by being controversial, I don't mean start picking political fights because it's controversial. If your show has nothing to do with politics, stay the heck out of politics. But if your brand and your messaging has got some sort of voice or spark that it's a little bit controversial, don't be afraid to move into that. As Monique said earlier, the title of my book that's coming out is Flaunt, Drop Your Cover, and Reveal Your Smart, Sexy, Spiritual Self. Now, being smart can be controversial, especially for a woman, because women can be seen as too powerful and too aggressive. Being sexy is definitely controversial, especially with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement. What the heck? This, I'm telling women to embrace their sexy, that's controversial. That will repel people from me, but it will also attract people to me. But it is attracting the people that I want in my tribe. I am attracting people who are not afraid to say, yes, I want to be beautiful, or I want to be sexy my way. And no, I do not want to look like a photoshopped, airbrushed model. I want to be sexy in my own right. That's a very controversial word. Don't be afraid to move into it if it's part of your branding. Don't just throw the word sexy in if it makes no sense for you, but what is controversial about you? The third word in my title is spiritual. That is also a tiny bit controversial. It's not religious, it's spiritual. But again, it can attract people or it can repel people, which is fine because I know my tribe, I know my avatar, I know the people that I want to work with, and the people that I want to work with and the people that I do work with are not afraid to say, yes, I want all three. I want to be smart, I want to be sexy, and I want to be spiritual. So do not be afraid of the haters, the trolls, the people who get online and say, what are you trying to do with your show? If you have some negative reactions, it actually means you're doing a good thing because it means you're being brave enough to take a stand. And a show will only be popular if you are brave enough to take a stand. And again, I want to caution you not to just make up a stand, but make sure it's part of your branding, part of who you are, and part of your messaging. Messaging. Personality. They call it a radio personality because you are putting your personality out there online. And everybody likes somebody with a personality. And I guarantee you all have a personality. But most of us, it's human nature, we're super comfortable with our friends. We're super comfortable with our families. We talk, we laugh, we use, gestures. We do all that. We get on stage or we get behind a microphone, and all of a sudden we have to get really serious. I am a podcaster, and I'm going to teach. And we lose our personalities. And listeners want to know us. Listeners want to feel like they are a friend. What I tell all of my guests before my show is I want listeners to feel like they're out to lunch with us, that we're all at a table together and we're just talking and we're laughing and we're making mistakes. And when things come up that seem off topic, move into them because that's where a lot of times the magic happens. I very rarely script a show, and that's me. Because I tend to be a diversionary thinker. Oh, let me tell you this. Oh, what about this? Oh my gosh, I just saw your necklace. Let me tell you about. That's my personality. That's my brand. That's the excitement and energy. I talk about living your sparkle, which is living in the moment. So my show has to be sparkly. We need to flow. I don't need a script for my show. I'm a former attorney. I litigated. I did defensive litigation. I did depositions. I interrogated people, basically. Those had to be scripted because I was trying to prove points. I couldn't leave out any of the elements. I had to get points in. Those were scripted. Being a lawyer, I did not show my personality. It was all up here in my head. My radio show, my podcast needs to come from my heart. I don't need to prove points on my show. I have my little listing here of like 10 points that I want to cover with you guys. And you might have seen me look over it because I want to make sure I cover the points. But I don't have my dialogue written out. Talk to them like this. I need to let my personality shine. And you can either think, wow, Lora, you're really helpful and this is cool. Or you can think, not my kind of person, and you can click off the call, which is fine either way. And that's how it is with your show too. You want listeners to listen to your voice and to hear your style and be thinking, yes, she could be my friend or he could be my friend. This is somebody that I want to connect with. So don't be afraid to let your personality out. Let your normal words come out. Let your normal mistakes come out. Which leads me to my next point. You need to decide what kind of show you're going to have. Is it going to be live or is it going to be pre-recorded? And if it's pre-recorded, what kind of editing are you going to do? And you need to know that not only for your sake, but for the sake of your listeners and your guests as well. I pre-record my shows simply because it's convenient to me and it's less stressful for me to put together a show, edit on the intro, edit on the outro, make sure my timing is right, submit it to the producers and have them air it. I'm not adverse to doing live shows. And in fact, I have wanted to do some live shows occasionally so I can take calling in from listeners, which is fun. When I pre-record my shows, which is more convenient for my guests and for me, I always tell guests, I do not edit for content, which means I will not cut out parts of your sentences or paste them together and make it sound like you said something that you didn't say. The magic of editing is phenomenal, but you can twist other people's words. And people need to be comfortable knowing you are not going to twist their words. You are not going to edit the show and make it sound like they're saying something that they didn't say. If somebody has a coughing fit, which happens, I've got 2 dogs that are always around. If barking happens, I will edit that out. If my guest has a kid or a doorbell or a siren or something like that, I'll edit that out. But I'm never editing for content. If a show goes over the mark, sometimes I will edit out ums and ahs and pauses. Sometimes I will have to edit out a few closing comments or something like that, but I will never materially or significantly edit the content. And yes, your guests will ask about that, and they do need to know that. And it will make you much more respected as a podcast host if you have got standards like that, that you can let your guests know what you will and will not do. Let's see what else about that. Oh, this is an important one too. Show notes. You might decide to do show notes and you might decide not to do show notes. But have some standards around your show notes. What they are, for people who don't know, is it's basically a transcript of what was said in the interview. It's great for SEO purposes because it's something that you put online and Google can crawl it and you can have all those keywords in your show notes, and it can help drive traffic to you. However, it's a huge extra burden because either you have to sit there and transcribe it, or you have to pay somebody to transcribe it, and then is it worth your time? Something that only you can decide. I started doing show notes for a while and then quickly thought, you know what? For me, it's not about finding new people online. For me, it is sharing the love with my guests and having them spread the love. So I no longer do show notes. If your guest really wants show notes, that's something that you can offer to them. Like, you know, hey, this was wonderful. So glad we did an interview. If you want to transcribe it, that's perfect. Share them with me, then you can share them online, which rolls right into my next point. Know what your guests are going to do with your show. You've heard the phrase, once something is on the internet, it's on there forever. It is. You don't necessarily own your own show. Once you share it out to the world, people can do things with it. Be aware of that fact. People can harvest audio from your show. If people can download a show, they can pretty much do anything with your show that they'd like. If you want your show shared, it really helps your reach, but it can also open you up to having your show go places that you're maybe not necessarily comfortable with. You can get a little legal disclaimer. You can work with a lawyer. You can just search online and get some little disclaimers. You can put that up on your own show, or you can just let it be. Like with show notes, to a certain extent, I am letting it be because I have found that my show has a much greater reach when I just allow people to have access to my show. And what I do ask my guests is, please share it. I want you to share it. Please share it. Please let me know where you're sharing it. Please tag me when you are sharing it. And please ask me if you want to use a clip of the audio. More than likely, I will happily grant you permission, but please just let me know, just a common courtesy thing. And for me, that has been sufficient because, again, most of the guests that I have had are wonderful, amazing, heart-centered people who would never do anything wrong. So I'm going to pause here for a minute before we move into the technicalities of a show, because I want to check out the chat because I see several things have popped up in the chat, and I want to give you the opportunity to ask any other questions. First question is, what is the N in flaunt? I skipped over that. That is navigate the negative, which is hilarious that that's the piece that got stepped over. And that's something that I also want to say. On a show, please don't get hung up in being a perfectionist. I'm a perfectionist. And if I edited every single show to the point that it was perfect, I would never get a show out there. Never, 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 never get a show out there because I'd say, oh, you know, there's a little bonk where I hit the microphone. There is a weird sound in the background. Oh my gosh, I sounded weird. I forgot to say that. People fall in love with you for your not for your perfection. People fall in love with you for your humanity. So be yourself. Be human. I don't know if you've noticed on this call, but I don't tend to modulate my voice. I'm enthusiastic, and I talk fast, and I get sidetracked, and blah, 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 blah. That's what people like about me. People like my enthusiasm. And whenever I've tried to be professional, people are like, well, that was an interesting show, Laura, but it just didn't sound like you. So be you. Okay, keep your questions coming. I'm going to move through the chat here. Love this question from Doug. Suicide is a dark topic that no one likes to talk about. How would I structure a podcast towards suicide advocacy? Thank you for asking that. First of all, you answered your own question a little bit by putting in that word advocacy. What are people searching for online? It might be advocacy. It might be even hitting people in the I am considering suicide, what are the impacts? You might want to, depending on what your reach is, what you want to structure, you might think, if I am a depressed person, what are the reasons that people might be considering suicide, and what might they be searching? They might be searching what are options, what are alternatives. That goes kind of back to that SEO. Think about what they might be searching. You can put that in your show, and you might get people who are considering suicide, ? Here are the options. Are you a mom of a kid who might be suicidal? Family support around that. So advocacy is your word. Yes, it's a dark topic, but it's very needed. It's very necessary to get the word out about that. So in your show, if you are hitting those pain points, I'm depressed, I don't see my way out of this, I have made some horrible mistakes, from the person who might be considering it and from those around them. You might pick up school counselors. When there's, how sometimes suicide is contagious at a school, your show might be reaching out to school counselors, to community counselors, to teachers, to people in the community who might be confronted with a rash of suicides, and they might be seeking help. What can I do? How can I combat this? And also I like what you said right there, it's a dark topic, how do we talk about it? That's something that people might also be Googling and might be wanting a show about. This is dark, how do I talk about it? My kid is struggling with this, my friend is struggling with this. How do I talk about it? Think about all the people out there who are afraid that their friend might be suicidal and they don't know what to do. What would they be searching? They might even be searching what to do when your friend is threatening suicide. What to do. Structure your shows around that. And I think you've got an amazing message that can help a lot of people. And again, with any show, there's always two ends of the stick, is the way I like to think about it. There's the positive, and then there's the negative. On your show, the negative obviously is committing suicide. The positive is not committing suicide. Your SEO runs the gamut. If it's a show on drug abuse, you might start thinking in terms of, how do I access more drugs? Does that make sense? You want the search to go the entire way so you can hit people along that entire spectrum and then shift them from that negative behavior into that positive. Okay? We'll look at the chat, see. Have I encountered any issues of sharing, and how do I address them? Fortunately, I have had no negative issues in terms of sharing. Just the other day, however, I found my show on I guess it's a pretty successful online magazine with fitness, and one of the links to my show was there, but it wasn't tagged back to me. So all I did was just send them an email. I perused their magazine, says this is a great online magazine. I love this. I see that you picked up my show. I am so honored. Thank you for that. Tag me, however. And that just happened a couple days ago, and I have not gotten a response from them. I'll give them another 3 or 4 days, and if not, I'll go back through and maybe put a link in the comments. Thank you for sharing my show. Here's the tag to me in the original show. They did keep it in full, which was great. I tend to think that most people aren't evil. They're sharing your content because they find it intriguing, and they have just overlooked tagging you. I know myself have gotten excited and have shared things without accrediting or attributing it to the original source sometimes. And I feel bad for doing it. And if somebody were to approach me and to say, Lora, come on, that was my content, I would have been like, oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry. And let me tag it for them. So fortunately, I've had no negative experiences. And I really think just communication and sharing and asking for what you want. If you ask for what you want, if you put that little tag on your show, please credit me, please share freely, but just credit me. Please share freely, but tag me. I think when we punish people, it just shuts it all down. And then when we help people and say thank you and please tag me, it's a more positive experience for everybody. Okay, let's move down. I like that you have young and elderly women. Yes, yes. It is difficult to find a target group, target audience sometimes. If your branding is around one thing, bueno, go on that. If your targeting is a little bit scattered, it's fine to have different shows to match your different targets. And yes, that's something you can do. This show is for the girls. This show is for the moms. This show is for, whoever it is, entrepreneurs. This show, and let people know up front, because above all else, people don't like to be tricked. If they're about to listen to your show, it's because they want to get something from you. Time is valuable. Time is the #1 resource. So again, like I was saying with branding, I'd rather be a little controversial and repel the people up front so I don't waste their time. I've done a few shows on menopause. I've interviewed some amazing people. One woman has this app with meditations to help women go through menopause. I say that up front. This is a show on menopause. That way, men might want to drop off, and the college girls might want to drop off. Same thing, I've done shows for college girls entering the workforce for the first time. I let people know up front, this is a show for women who are entering the workforce and want to learn how to step into their own power early on. Don't make the mistakes I made as a young attorney. That way, the women who are set in their career or who are out of their career can drop off, and I'm not wasting their time. And it's that mutual respect. A show for everybody is a show for nobody. And I'm going to say that again. A show for everybody is a show for nobody. You need to let people know what they're going to get. You need to promise it, and you need to deliver it. And yes, sometimes it can just be a show promoting your service. That's fine. But let people know. This is a show where I'm going to introduce myself to you. My first show that I did was about me and my story and my journey and my services. And sometimes I just refresh and have a show on my retreat that's coming up. But I let people know because you want to deliver on your promise. So let them know what the promise is and then deliver on your promise and allow them to come in or go out. Okay, I'm going to move over. Yeah, people between 18 and 99. Perfect. Just let them know what the show is for. Because an 18-year-old and a 99-year-old have a lot that's not in common as well. So just target the show and just let them know what you're doing. Can you please repeat the sharing questions you ask your guests? Yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to say it the exact same. I let them know to please share this show broadly. I always tell them, which is true, the more you share, the more attention is drawn to you. My audience knows me, and they know that I share every week, which actually can lessen the impact because, oh yeah, it's Wednesday, Laura's sharing again. You need to share. I need to share. The more we share, the more reach the show has. However, please tag me when you share. It can be as simple as I was on Lora Cheadle's fabulous podcast, and at Lora Cheadle, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Same thing like in a newsletter. Please share the link to my show, but please let people know who I am. I was on Lora Cheadle's show, Flaunt, Build Your Dreams and Live Your Sparkle. It's just a little tag back to me. If you can hyperlink me, perfect. If you can tag me, perfect. But just let people know who I am and don't cut off my intro because I want to make that connection with people. And they may not reach out to me later on, and that's fine. But it's that respect thing. You know, think about it when you are writing a paper and you're citing your sources. You're just citing your source. I am your source. I put you on my platform. Just tag me. Okay. Let me look down. Certified Peer Support Specialist, Suicide Guest Daily. Thank you. Perfect. Joy. I love joy. That's one of my favorite words. Launching first retreat. Oh, yay. Congratulations. Is just tagging enough? Do you use? I have not had legal concerns. However, I don't have guests on my show that I haven't met or haven't had a connection with, if that makes sense. For instance, there's a couple of people on this call right now that I've interviewed on my show that I met in India. They're fellow speakers. They are fellow entrepreneurs. We talk. We share our stories with each other. I interview a lot of authors. I interview people who are in the public eye. I interview people who have their reputation, their work. I have not had an issue with that because everybody that I interview is a professional. Speaking of things like suicide, I've done a lot of shows with infidelity as well. There are certain topics where people might not want their identity shared. They might not want the entire world knowing their journey at this point. We talk about that before. We change names, we change identities. We have that discussion, and I will keep the email around that on file in case there ever is a concern, because life is long and the internet is forever. And if somebody is going on, you know, Oprah in 5 years and now something has changed and then there's this interview out there, I want to have my paper trail that, yes, you agreed to be on my show. I've got the guest letter, I keep the emails, but I'm not into a lot of the formalities simply because I know most of my guests and I trust, again, that heart connection that we're doing the right things for the right reasons and that that's going to be sufficient. However, if I were doing an interview with somebody that I didn't know on a controversial subject that I might not trust, I would maybe not even air the show. I have done 3 shows with people where after the show was produced, I did not feel comfortable putting it on the air. I didn't like the vibe of the person that I got. I didn't feel like there was a sense of trust, and I chose not to air the show. And I would rather completely err on that side and be cautious and just have the show not air and would have wasted my time than to put something on the air and then face a legal issue later with it. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's not worth it for me. Do you have any other questions before I move into the technicalities? Because I see we've got about 9 minutes left and I want to make sure we cover some of the technicalities. Yes, and again, feel free to email me later. You can email me questions after the show. No, I won't spend 12 more hours setting up the podcast, but I'm happy to be like, yes, this is what I like. No, don't do this. So yeah, let me know. That's fine.
And also, Laura, people can afterwards also share any kind of questions they have in our community, so you can keep an eye out on that. Yes, so you can play together.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, technicalities. First thing, podcasting is expensive. It just is. It's expensive for a lot of reasons. One of the things you need to decide is your show going to be self-funded, or are you going to get sponsors? Sponsors are like the corporate sponsors that pay you to advertise their services on your show. I am a self-funded show. Early on, I was getting sponsors, and then I felt like it was making me beholden to them in ways that I didn't want. A lot of people were hitting me up, like a lot of the multi-line marketing people, you know, I'll pay you and I can advertise my vitamins on your show. And it was like, I don't support your vitamins. There's nothing wrong with them, but it legitimately is not a product that I use. So I didn't want a paid endorsement of something that I didn't use. So I chose not to do that. I have had a few people hit me up about corporate sponsorships, but again, do I want to align myself with that brand? So far, I have not found a 100% perfect fit. That's not to say that I won't, but think about what you are saying if you accept sponsorship money or if you do an ad. You're basically telling your entire audience that you drive that car, or that you eat that food, or that you work out at that club, whatever it is. So be very cognizant of what you are saying in your advertising, and only accept advertising or sponsorship dollars from a brand that you 100% fully endorse. Okay? Again, I like to be a little bit more on the cautious side, and there have been some great brands that have approached me, but I kind of look down the line and I think, things can shift, and the internet is forever, and I don't want my name and that product necessarily tied together forever. Okay? Technicalities. You need a mic. You need a computer. Doesn't matter. You can do Mac, you can do PC, whatever. You need editing software, or you need to hire somebody to edit your show for you. I'm not going to specifically recommend any kind of mic or software. I will just tell you there's plenty out there that are good. I had a really high-end mic for a while, and it was okay. It broke. I picked up this mic, which was just one of the Amazon Choice microphones, and the reason I picked it up was because it had the white casing, and I liked the white casing, and it could get to my house the next day, and I needed something to get to my house the next day. The quality of this mic is pretty much 100% similar to the quality of my $600 mic, and I think this was like $60. So test out some mics, see what your budget is. You can always buy something and test it, and if you don't like it, you can try something else. I have a PC. I've used GarageBand as an editor, and I've used WavePad sound editor. GarageBand takes a little bit more. It's got some more fancy features, but it takes me longer. So I tend to edit most of my shows on WavePad sound editor. Look, Google around, check, ask other people. It has to be something that's intuitive for you. Editing your own show is not that difficult. You can hire somebody to teach you how to edit. I know there's a lot of coaches out there. Fiverr, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Fiverr online. I think it's Fiverr. It's a site where people post their skills, and you can hire them. You can hire somebody to teach you how to edit, or you can hire somebody to edit your show for you. Just like with show notes, it tends to get pricey. If you're paying somebody $50 an hour to, I was talking US, US dollars an hour to do show notes, and then maybe $100 an hour to edit your show, that can be a pretty pricey endeavor. For me, it was worth it to learn how to do it myself, and it's not that hard. I was a journalism undergrad, so I did have some previous editing experience, but that was quite different editing manually than it is editing, online today. Graphics. You need graphics for your show. People can send you images of themselves. You need to have photos of you. You can have them professionally done, or again, with the different phones and the different filters, you can have somebody take a picture and you can put your own filters on it, and you can come up with an image that looks pretty good. Have your guests send them an image. Then you need a graphic, their image, your image, title of the show. Again, you can hire that done. Canva or PicMonkey are two places online where you can also do photo imaging and create your own graphics. It's not that hard. It does take practice. But again, think about your branding. Don't have a new graphic for every single show. People want to know who you are. Oh, look, my cat's coming in the picture. People want to know who you are, and they want to know your show by sight and by sound. So once you come up with a great graphic, color, branding, whatever, keep it the same. Intro, outro, and promo. At the beginning of a show is the little intro. Mine has this little music, do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and it talks about women are tired of being all things for all people, blah, 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 blah. Tune into this show, flaunt, build your dreams, live your sparkle. It's in somebody else's voice, and it's with music, and I tag that on the front of every show. On the back of every show, I have an outro that, again, is like, thank you for tuning in, tune in next week, and it gives the call letters of the station. You can hire somebody to do that for you, which I recommend. You need to choose a voiceover, a person for it. You need to get music. You need to have somebody edit it professionally, and you need to get the licensing to use that. Again, that's something you can find online. You can do it on Fiverr. If you let me know, I can send you the link of the person who did it for me. Maybe $100 to have that done. That's not super expensive. Then you'll also need an audio promo. An audio promo is just the little explanation of who you are, what your show is about, how they can find you. That is something then that you can put on social media. You can give it to your friends. They can put it on their podcasts so people know where to find you. And that's really, as far as technicality, all you need. You can also do earbuds. You can record with the speaker, the mic setup. Depends on the audio setup of your laptop. But I would encourage you to play around with audio quality with some different mics. Test record. Most computers just have a record feature, and you can just play around with different mics and see what sounds best for you. Do you have any questions on technical stuff? I will check. Okay, I don't see anything in the chat.
I think you can also unmute yourself. So if you want to have any other questions to Lora at this point, it's your opportunity to also just jump in and ask a question right away, I would suggest, Lora, right? Yeah.
And it seems like we're at time, so you can jump in, at chat too. But Minku, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to say, Lora, so good to hear your voice again.
So good to see you too.
Thank you, wonderful.
Well, thank you all. Like what Monique said, connect with me in the chat. Think about questions. Once you start your journey, if you start your journey, please reach out. I will help you however I can. And thank you so much for letting me be here today. I had a ton of fun, and I wish you all the best on your podcasting or radio journey. And the station that I have my show hosted at has got a sample, like be a star for a day if you want to try it out and see if you like it. So reach out to me. I can put you in touch with a producer, and then you can do one show if you want to just test yourself out and see if you like it, which is a really good way to start.
Sounds fabulous. Thank you so much, Lora. I know podcasting is amazing, right? It opens us incredible doors. I started also podcasting 7 years ago. And I know of the power. Within 5-6 months, I had like 20,000 listeners, right? I mean, it's, it is magic. And I know already a few years ago people said podcasting is dead. Everyone wants to watch videos. Not at all, right? Not at all. There's so many people on the run, traveling on the road all the time. They love to listen while, I love to listen while I'm running even, right? I mean, audio is not that, and it will never be. So, and a lot of people think like, oh, you know what, should I really still go for podcasting? There's a lot of podcasts out there already. No, the world needs to hear your voice, your message, your perspective. And again, as I said, I mean, podcasting has really shifted a lot for me, opened many doors, attracted clients, supporters, people in networks that we normally don't get easy access to, right? So I can just encourage each and every one of you to really consider running your own podcast in a powerful way. And as Lora said, you don't have to do it weekly. I also did it weekly, right? I kicked my butt to do it weekly. But, you can do it bi-weekly. You can do it monthly. You don't, as long as you do it consistently, it's powerful. Okay. Thank you so much, Lora. I love your energy. I love your passion. I love your drive, and can't wait to read your new book again. So it's, when it's coming out. And I think you also said that you had a little bit of a gift for everyone, right?
I do.
Yeah. So tell us about it.
I have got, it's beautiful. It's a professionally produced MP3 downloadable meditation on finding your passion and your purpose. And if you're really thinking about creating a podcast and you're going, I don't know what I should talk about, it's something that can really help you. I think it's only about 30 minutes, and it'll really help you get honed in on, yes, this is who I am, and this is my message, and this is why I was put on this earth, and I need to share it.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, good. Amazing to have you today. And oh my God, you get me starting my podcast again with all the passion and drive and, inspiration you're sharing. It's really powerful. So thank you for being here with us today. And thank you, each and every one of you, all of you, Manolis and Sri, Susanne, Tanya, Herlinde, Doug, Philippe, iPhone, I don't even know who that is, iPhone, Mr. or Mrs. iPhone, Sri, Susanne, Tanya, all of you, it's amazing to have you. And I just really invite you to seriously consider starting a podcast. I know, Herlinde, you already are on the road, right? And a few of you are seriously considering it. Again, it's a powerful way of getting more heard and seen out there. And my podcast opened me doors to stages as well as speakers. So thank you, all of you, for being here with us. Thank you for getting inspired and inspiring us, and all your powerful questions. And we're going to have a little summer break in August, but in September, we're going to be on with another community call. And in the meantime, just, again, any questions that come up, and I know they come up when you start doing your podcasting, so you can actually ask them in our tribe. You can ask them to Lora directly. And Lora, I wish you an incredible, pre-book launch time. I know you're an incredible busy lady. I wish you all a fabulous summer, and we will be in touch in our community. Any questions you have, anything you'd like to share to inspire others with, please feel free to share. And Lora, again, a big thank you for being on with us today, and to all of you for being on with us today. Let's go. Let's rock it. Let's make sure that we are more heard and seen also through podcasting. Okay. All the best. Have a fabulous summer, and I'll see you back at our next community call in September. Okay? Mwah. All the best until then. Cheers.